Strange, isn't it? You can wake up every day, go to work, eat your meals, even laugh at your favorite show, and still not realize your health is slowly slipping away. Not because of something dramatic, but because of something quiet, something steady, something that doesn't hurt until it's far too late. High blood pressure. They call it the silent killer, but I've come to think of it more like a steady drip from a leaky faucet. Barely noticeable at first, but over the years, it wears through even the strongest foundation. You see, most people don't feel high blood pressure. They don't wake up clutching their chest. They don't collapse in the street. No, they go on living, rushing from one thing to the next, coffee in hand, sleep deprived, telling themselves, "I'm just tired," or "I'll rest this weekend." But their body is keeping score. The arteries quietly stiffen. The heart pushes harder than it should. The brain, that delicate organ of thought and memory, gets just a little less blood than it truly needs. It's like driving with your foot lightly pressing the gas pedal. Even when the road is still, over time something gives. And here's the hidden connection no one talks about enough. Stroke doesn't just happen randomly. It doesn't just appear out of nowhere like a bolt of lightning. More often than not, it's been quietly building, day by day, with every ignored headache, every missed checkup, every evening you told yourself, "It's nothing, I'll be fine." You don't notice when your blood pressure creeps up. It's not like a broken bone. There's no bruising, no bleeding, just numbers on a screen you glance at during a rushed visit to the pharmacy and forget as soon as you leave. But inside, your body remembers, your vessels narrow, your blood thickens, and slowly, almost tenderly, the brain becomes vulnerable to a storm it never saw coming. I once met a man, 62 years old, looked younger than his age, still worked full-time, still jogged twice a week, never smoked, but he rarely slept more than 5 hours, lived on instant noodles and stress, didn't like doctors, said he felt fine. Then one day, he couldn't lift his coffee mug, his arm just didn't move, his speech slurred, and within minutes, his life became split in two, before the stroke and after. When I visited him in the hospital, he looked at me and whispered, "But I didn't feel sick." That's the part that gets most people. You don't feel it until it's already done its damage. And that's the tragedy, not just the stroke itself, but the years of quiet warnings we brushed off. A dull pressure behind the eyes, a strange moment of dizziness after standing up too fast, a ringing in the ears that comes and goes. You write it off, you move on, you live through it, until one day you don't. It's easy to blame stress, to blame aging, to say, everyone has something these days, and maybe that's true, but you don't have to let it be you. The hardest part of this story is how ordinary it all feels. There's no alarm, no red flags, just small things. A skipped glass of water, too much salt, falling asleep with the TV on again, another night without real rest. But the body keeps track. It's always listening, always adjusting. And when it can't adjust anymore, that's when the damage shows. The connection between high blood pressure and stroke isn't sudden. It's not a line. It's a path, walked over years, sometimes decades. A quiet buildup until one day, your brain says, "No more." And that's what I want you to remember tonight. Not to scare you, but to awaken something, a kind of awareness, that health isn't just about how you feel. It's about how your body is holding up beneath the surface. So if you're listening to this and thinking, maybe I've been ignoring too much, then you're already ahead, because noticing, truly noticing, is where healing begins. Let's talk more in the next part about what blood pressure really does and why ignoring it is like sleeping in a house with a fire smoldering quietly in the walls. You ever notice how old houses sometimes shift without warning? A door that used to close perfectly now sticks. The floor creaks in places it didn't before. Nothing dramatic, just quiet changes, until one day, the cracks appear. That's how. High blood pressure works on the brain, not in loud bursts, but through slow, unseen wear. Most people think of stroke as one big event, a sudden, violent rupture, but the truth is, by the time a stroke happens, the groundwork has been laid long ago, brick by quiet brick. High blood pressure changes how your blood moves through the body. It hardens the arteries, makes them less flexible, less able to cushion each beat of the heart and in the brain. That softness, that flexibility, it matters more than you might think. You see, the brain isn't just a lump of tissue. It's an intricate garden, fed by thousands of tiny vessels, delicate as silk thread. They bring oxygen, nutrients, and life to every thought, every memory, every quiet decision you make without even realizing. But when pressure stays high, those vessels suffer. They become brittle, they narrow. Sometimes they close off entirely, and the brain, that beautiful, complicated machine, begins to work just a little bit less like itself. You forget names you once recalled easily. You lose your train of thought in the middle of a sentence. You feel tired, even after sleeping, not because you're getting older, but because the very roads inside your brain are slowly breaking down. This is what we call vascular cognitive decline. It's not a full stroke. It's not a diagnosis that grabs headlines, but it's the slow erosion of who you are, caused in part by blood pressure that was never meant to stay high this long. And the worst part? It doesn't show up in a blood test. It doesn't scream for attention. It just drips quietly, leaving small scars in places no one sees. I've had patients come in, worried about memory. They say things like, "I'm just not myself lately," or "I don't feel sharp anymore." And after tests and scans, what we find isn't Alzheimer's. It's tiny strokes, little pinpricks of damage scattered like stars across the brain. They didn't even know it happened. They were just living, commuting, working late, skipping meals, missing sleep, arguing in traffic, and telling themselves they'd get back to health next month, next year. But the body doesn't wait. It adjusts until it can't. And here's the thing no one tells you. You can feel perfectly normal and still be losing pieces of yourself, not all at once, but slowly, in thoughts you don't finish, conversations you forget, emotions that start to dull. The connection between high blood pressure and stroke isn't just about risk, it's about reality. Every day your pressure stays high is a day those vessels are under strain, and the brain, well, it can't always keep up. A woman I once treated, sharp as a tack in her 40s, by 60, she'd stopped driving. Not because of one big stroke, but because her sense of direction faded. She got lost in her own neighborhood. Maps didn't help. The roads in her mind just weren't connecting the same. When we reviewed her history, she had untreated hypertension for almost 20 years. No symptoms, she said, just a busy life, just a little stress, just life. And I get it. We all make trades, a little sleep for a little success, a skipped walk for a late meeting. But the body doesn't trade, it only accumulates. So, if your blood pressure's been creeping up, if you've told yourself it's nothing, if you've been relying on luck, let me tell you something simple. It's not about avoiding a heart attack or living to 100. It's about protecting your mind, your clarity, your ability to recognize your child's voice, or remember why. You walked into a room. These things, they slip away silently, but they matter more than most of us realize, until they're already gone. And here's the quiet truth no one says enough. By the time you feel the effects, it's often too late to undo them. But it's never too late to slow them, to soften the damage, to reclaim the present. Blood pressure is not just a number. It's a reflection of pressure elsewhere, in how we live, how we rest, what we hold in, and what we ignore. We'll talk about that next. About the hidden emotional pressures, the habits we don't count as harmful, and why the way we live often echoes louder in our blood than in our words. Not all pressure shows up on a monitor. Not all damage begins in the body. Some of it starts in the heart. And I don't mean the organ that pumps blood. I mean the kind of pressure you carry silently, the kind that builds in your chest at 2 a.m. when everyone else is asleep, the kind that doesn't make you cry, just makes you quiet, tired, a little numb, you see. Blood pressure isn't just a physical thing. It responds to how we live, how we think, how we hold our stress. I've sat across from people who've tried every diet, taken every pill, walked every day, but their pressure stayed high. And when I asked about their life, the grief they never spoke about, the job that steals their sleep, the argument they keep having with themselves, suddenly it made sense. We're not machines. We're not just salt and sugar and steps per day. We're human. We carry stories, losses, worries, burdens no one else sees, and over time, if you don't let them out, your body holds them for you. Not because it wants to, but because it has to. I remember a man in his late 50s, blood pressure always just a little too high. Medication helped, but only a little. He said everything was fine. Good job, good family, no complaints. But when I asked about stress, he just laughed and said, "Nothing I can't handle. It took months before." He told me he hadn't really grieved his mother's passing, that he worked longer hours to avoid the quiet of his own home, that he hadn't slept a full night in years. His pressure dropped within weeks of starting therapy, not because of pills, but because he stopped pretending he was okay. That's the piece we often miss. You can eat clean, exercise daily, but if your heart is clenched, if your thoughts race like a train with no brakes, your body will feel that. The nervous system doesn't lie. When you're under chronic stress, even the quiet kind, your blood vessels tighten. Your cortisol rises, your heart beats faster, again and again, day after day. It's not the stress itself, it's the never stopping, the never releasing, the constant tension with no exhale. And sometimes it starts so early in life that you don't even recognize it as stress anymore. You just think, this is how I am. But your body knows the difference. It knows when you're surviving instead of living. High blood pressure is often your body trying to say, I'm under pressure, even if you won't admit it. And if you don't listen, that pressure moves somewhere else, to the heart, to the brain, until one day it shows up as something bigger. A mini stroke that passes in a few minutes. A dull pain in the chest that you think is just indigestion. A moment of confusion that fades too quickly to take seriously. But all of them are whispers, warning signs that your inner world is speaking through your body. You don't have to be in crisis to be in danger. Sometimes, just living in constant emotional tightness is enough to start the slow damage. So ask yourself quietly, tonight, where is the tension I never release? What emotions have I been swallowing for years? What parts of me are always clenching, always bracing for the next thing? And more importantly, what would it feel like to let go, to soften the breath, to forgive what can't be changed, to rest, not because you've earned it, but because you need it? This isn't about becoming a different person. It's about becoming less heavy, because the weight you carry inside, it adds up. Not in pounds, but in pressure, in tight vessels, in stiff hearts. In weary minds and slowly, almost tenderly, it leads the body toward a place it was never meant to go. That's why in the next part, we'll talk about the little habits, the things you do every day without thinking. Too much salt, too little water, too many screens, and how those choices, when paired with emotional pressure, become something the brain can't ignore forever. It's not always the big choices that shape our health. Sometimes, it's the small ones, the things we do without thinking, day after day, until they become part of us. You reach for the salt shaker before you even taste the food. You stay up just a little later to finish one more episode. You tell yourself you're too busy to take a walk today, and then again tomorrow. And the day after that, it doesn't feel like much, not in the moment. But health doesn't vanish in a moment. It drifts away slowly, quietly, like a shoreline receding with each unnoticed tide. High blood pressure isn't always caused by something dramatic. More often, it's caused by 100 quiet decisions made on autopilot in the name of convenience, comfort, or simply habit. Take salt, for example. It's not just in what you sprinkle. It's in the processed meals, the sauces, the snacks, even the healthy ones. Those low-fat frozen dinners, those energy bars. They carry more sodium than your body knows what to do with, and over time, your blood responds. The vessels constrict, the pressure rises, the heart works harder, and all you feel is normal until one day your normal becomes a risk. Then there's sleep, or the lack of it. It's funny how often we treat sleep like a luxury, as if rest is something we have to earn. But your blood vessels don't care how busy your day was. They just need time to repair, to soften again. And when you stay up night after night, chasing productivity, your body stays in alert mode, even in silence. Even in darkness, and alert mode is pressure, plain and simple. A nervous system that never truly calms down. A heart that never gets to slow. A mind that never fully empties. Then comes the sitting. We sit in cars, in offices, at kitchen tables, on couches, hours at a time, blood pooling in the legs, the heart pumping harder just to circulate. And we call it resting, but the body calls it waiting. Waiting for movement, waiting for breath, waiting for something to release. The buildup, even hydration, something so simple, so basic, we forget it matters. We go half the day without water, then wonder why we feel foggy, tired, tense. Dehydration thickens the blood, narrows the vessels, makes the heart's job harder. Not enough to knock you over, just enough to tilt the balance, again, and again, and again. And then there's the screen time, endless scrolling, flashing light, constant noise. It keeps the mind on edge, keeps the nervous system slightly activated. Even when you think you're relaxing, your body isn't quite sure. Your eyes stay wide, your breath stays shallow, and your heart keeps listening. All of these things on their own, they don't seem dangerous, but when stacked together, day after day, year after year, they become something else entirely. They become a slow erosion, not of strength, but of resilience. And when you add that to stress, to emotional pressure, to the weight you carry in silence, your blood pressure doesn't just rise, it settles at that level. Until one day it doesn't feel high, it just feels familiar. And that's when it becomes dangerous, when the body adapts to the pressure, when you stop noticing, because it's been this way for so long. That's why stroke can feel so sudden, even when it's been building for decades, because the damage was done quietly, through little things, accumulated, unquestioned, unseen. So tonight, ask yourself gently, what are the habits I've accepted as harmless? What am I doing each day that may be softening the foundation of my health, one quiet brick at a time. Not to blame, not to regret, but to notice. Because noticing is the beginning of remembering who you are. Not just someone surviving, but someone capable of restoring. In the next part, we'll look at the early signs the body gives, those gentle warnings most people ignore, the signals that whisper long before the stroke ever shouts. It's strange, isn't it? How the body whispers before it ever shouts, how it gives us signals, soft and subtle, and we learn to live with them. A little dizziness when you stand too quickly, a strange flicker in your vision when you're tired, a numbness in your fingers that fades before you can worry. These don't seem like warnings, they seem like nothing. So you carry on, you rub your temples, you sit down, drink water, blame the heat, the lights, the screen, the long day, anything but the body itself. But here's the quiet truth. Your body is always speaking, it just doesn't raise its voice until it has to. And when it comes to stroke, those whispers matter. The earliest signs are rarely dramatic. They're easy to dismiss because they come and go. And because we've been taught, if it's not constant, if it's not painful, it's probably fine. But many strokes start with moments, tiny windows where something isn't quite right. You lose your balance for a second. You fumble a word and laugh it off. You forget what you were saying halfway through a sentence. And maybe it's just fatigue. Maybe it's stress, or maybe it's the brain asking for help before it can no longer ask at all. I remember a woman, mid-40s, healthy on paper. She'd had a few episodes, brief ones, where her vision went blurry for less than a minute. She thought it was her contacts, her screen time, her hormones. She didn't mention it to anyone, because by the time she thought to, the symptoms were already gone. 3 weeks later, she had a stroke. Not a major one, thankfully, but enough to change how she moved, how she spoke, how she lived. Looking back, she said, if I just paid attention to the weird little things, I might have caught it in time. And she's not alone, because we've all been taught to tough it out, to ignore discomfort, to keep going, especially when it doesn't feel serious. But not feeling serious doesn't mean not serious. Some of the most dangerous shifts in the body are the ones that arrive quietly, not with pain, but with interruption, a delay, a hesitation, a flicker of confusion that shouldn't be there. You wake up one day and feel off, not sick, just off. And maybe you skip breakfast, sit a little longer before standing, move a little slower without realizing why. That's the body adjusting to imbalance. A signal, a flag waving gently from inside, asking for attention, for care, for pause. But modern life doesn't reward pausing, does it? It praises pushing through, drinking more coffee, popping a painkiller, telling ourselves, I'm fine, again and again, until we're not. So let's name these soft warnings, not to scare you, but to remind you to listen. Brief numbness, or tingling, especially on one side of the body. Sudden vision changes, like blurriness or double vision that fades. Slurred or slow speech, even for a moment. Sudden confusion, forgetting a word or how to do something simple. Loss of balance. Or unexplained clumsiness, a sudden severe headache different from anything you've had before. Or even just a feeling of being disconnected from yourself. Most of these don't last long, but they matter. Because the brain doesn't wait forever. It gives you what time it can, before the damage becomes permanent. I once told a patient, it's not about panic, it's about presence. You don't need to be afraid of every sensation, but you do need to be in relationship with your body, to check in, to notice, to ask gently, what are you trying to tell me? Because most people who suffer a stroke had early signs. They just didn't recognize them, or worse, they noticed and ignored them. That's the hidden connection between high blood pressure and stroke. Not just in the numbers, but in the warnings we overlook, because they don't demand our attention loudly. But tonight, maybe you give them a little more space, a little more trust, because your body has always known, even when you didn't want to hear it. In the next part, we'll talk about the illusion of control, how so many people believe they're managing their pressure while slowly drifting closer to the edge, and what it really means to take responsibility quietly before it's too late. There's a strange comfort in thinking we're in control. We like to believe we know our bodies. We measure, we track, we Google, we buy the wrist cuff. We check our pressure after coffee, before meetings, after arguments. We write it down in notebooks or apps, and we say things like, "My pressure's a little high, but I'm managing it." But let me ask you something. Are you really managing it or just monitoring it? Because they're not the same. Monitoring means you're watching. Managing means you're changing. But change is uncomfortable. It asks you to do less of what numbs you and more of what grounds you. It asks you to sleep earlier, to move your body, even when you're tired, to eat food that doesn't comfort you the way sugar or salt does. It asks you to say no to things that spike your adrenaline, even when saying yes makes you feel strong, important, in control. But here's the thing. Control isn't the absence of chaos. It's the willingness to face it. I've met people who knew their numbers minus 140 over 90, 145 over 95. They could recite them like stats from a game, and yet they hadn't changed a thing. Still working 12-hour days, still skipping breakfast, still falling asleep to a glowing screen. They felt in control because they were informed, but knowing isn't doing. And numbers without action are just numbers. A slow countdown, not a warning. I had a patient once, a man in his late 50s, sharp, successful. He had a spreadsheet tracking his BP readings every morning. He showed it to me proudly. I looked at it and said, "These numbers are trying to tell you something." He nodded and said, "Yeah, they've been high for a while, but I haven't had a stroke, so I guess I'm doing okay." 2 months later, he had a transient ischemic attack, a mini stroke, and suddenly the illusion shattered. His control had been conditional. It only worked until it didn't. This is what no one tells you, that the body doesn't negotiate with good intentions. It doesn't care how smart you are, how busy you are, how much you plan to start exercising next month. It responds to what is, not what you wish it was. So let me ask you again, are you managing your blood pressure or just watching it rise? Are you taking real steps, or are you delaying them behind words like, "I'm too stressed," "I'm too busy," or "I feel fine"? Because feeling fine is not the same as being fine, especially with high blood pressure, which is silent, steady, and deeply patient. It doesn't knock loudly. It waits until it breaks something. But here's the hopeful part. When you stop pretending you're in control, you finally gain real control, not through fear, but through awareness, through honest choices, small, daily shifts, like reducing salt a little, moving your body slowly, sleeping deeply, and breathing with intention. That's not weakness, that's wisdom, because you're not reacting to crisis, you're responding to reality. And that shift from illusion to intention is what separates those who live well from those who wait too long. In the next part, we'll go deeper into those daily choices, the habits that seem small, but either quietly heal or slowly harm your brain, and how each day becomes a vote for the future your body is building. When people ask me, what causes high blood pressure? They expect me to talk about genetics, salt, or age, and yes, those things matter. But what often surprises them is this. It's not just one big thing that raises your blood pressure. It's the small, quiet choices you repeat every day. The ones you barely notice because they've become part of your rhythm. Let me show you what I mean. It starts with sleep, or rather, the lack of it. You go to bed late. Not because you have to, but because your mind is wired. You're scrolling, watching, overthinking, and then the alarm cuts the night short. You wake up unrested, already tense, and your blood pressure? It doesn't care why you didn't sleep. It just rises in response to the strain. Then comes breakfast, or not. You skip it, or grab something processed. Sugary, fast, maybe coffee, strong and black, maybe 2 cups. Because you're chasing energy that should have come from rest. And now your system is spiking. Your cortisol, your heart rate, your pressure. Then work begins. Emails, deadlines, meetings. A constant hum of urgency. You sit for hours, rarely moving, barely breathing deeply. You feel like you're doing nothing wrong. You're just living your day. But the stress accumulates. Like static you don't hear until it cracks. At lunch, you eat quickly, distracted. Maybe something salty, instant noodles, fast food, leftovers soaked in soy sauce. And salt, as harmless as it tastes, quietly tells your blood vessels to stiffen, your kidneys to hold on to water, and your pressure to rise by afternoon. You're tired again, not physically, but mentally depleted. You reach for sugar or caffeine, something to keep you going. Not realizing it's a cycle. Exhaustion, stimulus, crash, repeat. Evening comes. You try to relax. Maybe with more screen time, scrolling through news or doom scrolling through social media. Your eyes are open, but your mind is tense and your nervous system stays on alert. There's no true winding down, just more input, more noise, and finally, it's midnight. You tell yourself, I'll sleep early tomorrow. But tomorrow looks a lot like today. This is the quiet architecture of hypertension. Not a dramatic collapse, not a single salty meal, but the slow daily erosion of calm, of rest, of balance. We think of habits as harmless, but they are architects of health. Every skipped walk, every night of poor sleep, every stressful hour we let pass without pause. They're bricks, and they build something, either protection or pressure. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight. That's another illusion, but you do need to see these patterns for what they are. Signals. Not shame, not failure, just messages from your body saying, this pace isn't working. This food isn't helping. This tension isn't sustainable. So start small. Maybe tonight, you sleep 30 minutes earlier. Maybe tomorrow, you walk for 10 minutes after lunch. Maybe you reduce one salty snack. Maybe you take 3 slow breaths before your first meeting. Not because you're sick, but because you're wise. That's the difference. Preventing stroke isn't about panic, it's about presence. And the daily acts of care we choose, especially when no one is watching, especially when we feel fine. In the next part, we'll talk about the deeper relationship between stress and blood pressure, not the loud stress, arguments or accidents, but the quiet kind, the constant background hum, and why it might be the most dangerous form of all. We often think of stress as loud, a fight, a deadline, a crisis, but the kind that harms your blood pressure the most is the one that doesn't shout. It whispers, and it never leaves. It's the kind of stress that lives in your chest like a quiet weight. The kind that makes you sigh without knowing why. The kind that tightens your shoulders even when you're lying in bed. It's not just a bad day, it's a bad rhythm, one you've gotten used to. You see, your body was built to handle short bursts of stress. A threat, a chase, an emergency. Your blood pressure rises to help you survive. But it was never meant to stay elevated. Not for days, not for weeks, not for years. And yet, that's what chronic stress does. It fools your system into thinking you're always under attack, so your heart pumps harder, your arteries narrow, your hormones surge. Your body braces itself. Again and again and again. Over time, this silent tension becomes your new normal. But it's not normal, it's just common, and that's a dangerous confusion. I've seen it in patients who never raise their voice, who are always fine, who keep going, keep pushing, keep holding it together for everyone else there. Stress doesn't explode, it erodes. Their health quietly drains drop by drop. Until one day, it's not a headache, it's a hemorrhage. It's not tiredness, it's a stroke. You might be one of them. You might have learned to live with a constant low hum of anxiety, to function under pressure, to dismiss the tightness in your chest as just stress. But that tension leaves a fingerprint on your blood vessels, and the longer it stays, the more likely it will leave a scar you cannot ignore. So what can we do? How do we fight a stress that hides so well? We don't fight, we listen, we slow down. We pay attention to the signals our body keeps sending. The clenched jaw, the shallow breath, the restless sleep, the irritability. These aren't weaknesses. They're messengers. Start with breath. Yes, breath. It sounds too simple, but it's not. Because when you breathe deeply, slowly, you tell your body, I'm safe. And that single message can begin to reverse the flood of stress hormones, lower your pressure, and give your heart a break. Then come the other rituals, small, steady anchors. Stretching in the morning, walking after meals, protecting your sleep like it's medicine. Choosing quiet, even for 5 minutes. Turning off the noise, digital or emotional, so your nervous system can reset. You don't need a retreat. You don't need to quit your job. You need to reclaim just enough space so that your body stops living like it's under siege. Because the truth is, chronic stress doesn't just raise blood pressure. It changes how your brain works, how your immune system responds, how your heart behaves. It's not in your head, it's in your body. And the price is real. In the next part, we'll talk about the warning signs you shouldn't ignore. Not just the physical ones, but the emotional ones. The signs that your blood pressure is no longer just a number, but a quiet danger calling for your attention. Not all warnings are loud. Some arrive quietly, like a whisper before a storm. And when it comes to high blood pressure, that whisper can be easy to miss. Until it's too late, we often assume we'll know when something's wrong. That a stroke or heart issue will come with drama, chest pain, slurred speech, sudden collapse. But the truth is, most people don't get a headline. They get a footnote. A strange moment here, a little signal there, easily dismissed, dangerously ignored. So what does a silent warning look like? It might be a morning headache that keeps returning, a kind of tight, pressing pain behind your eyes, not sharp, not severe, just enough to make you rub your temples. That could be your rising blood pressure speaking. It might be slight dizziness. When you stand up too quickly, not enough to fall, just enough to pause. That's your vascular system hinting that something's off. Or maybe your vision blurs for a few seconds. Like a camera losing focus, you blink, it clears, and you forget. But your body doesn't. That's often a red flag for fluctuating pressure or circulation issues in the brain. Some people notice a kind of pounding in the chest, not pain, just awareness. A heartbeat that feels too present, too strong, especially at night when everything else is quiet. That can be a warning, a signal of a heart working harder than it should. And then there's fatigue, not from lack of sleep, but a deep, inexplicable tiredness. a heaviness in your limbs, your thoughts slowing down. That fog isn't just getting older. It might be reduced blood flow to your brain, but the most dangerous warning sign? Feeling fine, yes fine, because high blood pressure is often symptomless. You feel capable, busy, productive. Meanwhile, your arteries are stiffening, your heart is straining, and a silent storm is gathering inside. I remember a patient. He was in his mid-50s, no symptoms, no worries, said he felt strong. But a routine check showed numbers that alarmed me. He laughed it off, said, "I've always been a little high." 2 months later, he came in with slurred speech and weakness in his right arm. That moment of denial had cost him more than he imagined. So I'll say this clearly: don't wait for pain. Don't wait for collapse. Don't wait for drama. Start listening now. Measure your blood pressure regularly. Track it. Notice patterns. Bring up strange symptoms, even if they feel small. And never, ever assume no pain means no problem, because in medicine, silence is often the scariest symptom of all. In the next part, we'll explore how your daily habits, especially the small, invisible ones, either protect your brain or quietly increase your risk of stroke, and why change doesn't have to be dramatic to be powerful. If you've made it this far, you already know stroke doesn't always come like lightning. Sometimes it creeps like fog, and the pressure that builds it often begins with the smallest things, done every day without a second thought. Let me tell you something. High blood pressure rarely comes from one big mistake. It's not just a single salty meal or one stressful week at work. It's what you do, quietly, consistently for years. That's both the danger and the opportunity. So let's talk about those small, invisible habits, the kind that shape your brain's future without making a sound. Take salt, for example. Most people think of salt as what they sprinkle on their food. But 70% of the sodium you eat comes from processed or packaged meals. Not your salt shaker, it's the sauces, the instant noodles, the healthy-looking frozen lunches, the snacks you reach for at 4 p.m. Bit by bit, that extra sodium stiffens your arteries, raises your pressure, and brings you closer to a stroke, all without you noticing. Then there's sitting. Not just not exercising, but hours of stillness, work desk to car seat to couch. Your blood vessels crave motion. Circulation thrives on movement. But a sedentary routine quietly trains your body for stagnation. Your pressure rises, even if you feel fine. What about sleep? That's another one. People wear sleeplessness like a badge. Staying up late, rising early, chasing productivity while robbing their body of repair. Chronic lack of sleep disrupts hormones, increases inflammation, and yes, leads to higher blood pressure, even if you're eating well and exercising. If your sleep is poor, you're not safe. Let's not forget stress. Not the obvious kind. Not yelling in traffic stress, but the low hum of constant urgency. Emails, notifications, financial worries. That background tension, the one you've gotten used to. It keeps your body in a subtle state of fight or flight. Blood vessels tighten, cortisol rises, pressure creeps up. And here's the hard truth. We often adapt to the wrong things. We normalize fatigue. We accept brain fog. We tell ourselves, this is just life. When in fact, it's your body signaling imbalance. Every sip, every bite, every hour spent in stillness or stress, it all adds up. But here's the beautiful part. Change doesn't have to be dramatic. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight. You just need to start nudging the dial, one better decision at a time. Add movement to your day, a 10-minute walk after lunch. Read labels, lower sodium, protect your sleep like it's sacred. Breathe deeper, slow down your mornings, say no more often. Tiny hinges swing big doors. And when it comes to stroke prevention, the door you're trying to keep shut opens slowly. But when it opens, it doesn't close easily. In the next part, we'll talk about the most underestimated risk factor of all, the one that silently poisons your brain and heart at the same time: chronic inflammation, and what you can do to reverse it, starting from the inside. There's something most people don't see, even many doctors don't say it enough, because it doesn't show up on a basic blood pressure reading, and yet, it might be the most important reason why high blood pressure leads to stroke. It's called chronic inflammation, and it's not the kind you feel, not like a sore throat or a swollen ankle. This kind is quiet, invisible, but always burning. Imagine your blood vessels as smooth tunnels, designed for effortless flow. But chronic inflammation turns those tunnels rough, sticky, fragile. It damages the inner lining of your arteries, the endothelium, making it easier for plaque to form, easier for pressure to rise, and tragically, easier for a clot or rupture to happen in your brain. So where does this silent fire come from? You'd be surprised. It's not just bad luck or bad genes. It comes from everyday life. Too much sugar, too many processed carbs, not enough fiber, not enough sleep, too little movement, and too much stress. These habits don't just raise your blood pressure. They inflame your entire system, and when pressure and inflammation meet, that's when strokes happen, not slowly, but suddenly, and without mercy. There's also something called oxidative stress. Think of it as rust in your arteries, triggered by pollution, smoking, alcohol, and even constant worry. It weakens vessel walls, destroys balance, and pushes your pressure higher, all while your body silently begs for help. But here's the part that matters most. Chronic inflammation is reversible. It's not a life sentence. It's a reflection of your inputs. And when you change those inputs, the fire can cool. Start with your plate. Choose more colors: greens, blues, reds. Plants that grow from the ground, not factories. Add omega-3 south. Fish, walnuts, flax seeds. They calm inflammation like gentle rain on fire. Then add rest. True rest, not screen time. Not collapse at midnight, but sleep that restores your brain and blood vessels. Because sleep isn't just rest, it's repair. It's when inflammation gets cleaned out. And don't forget breath, slow, mindful, full breaths. They send a message to your entire system. You're safe, you can heal. Because when your nervous system relaxes, your pressure drops, your vessels soften, and your brain is protected from the storm. Stroke is not only about numbers, it's about the state your body lives in. And chronic inflammation? That's the storm brewing beneath the surface. In the next part, we'll talk about a powerful and often overlooked tool to tame both blood pressure and inflammation. It's free, it's ancient, and it begins with how you breathe. Not many people talk about this, but the way you breathe, yes, something as simple as your breath, can raise or lower your blood pressure, can stir up inflammation or help calm it down, because your breath is not just air, it's information. It tells your nervous system what's happening, whether you're safe or whether you're under threat. And when you're constantly breathing fast, shallow from your chest, your body thinks you're in danger. It shifts into fight or flight, stress. Hormones rise. Vessels constrict, pressure builds, and stroke risk slowly climbs. But when you breathe slowly, deeply from your belly, you activate the parasympathetic nervous system. That's your rest and digest mode, the opposite of stress. Your heart rate slows, your blood vessels open up, your pressure gently lowers. This is more than meditation, it's physiology, it's science. Studies have shown that just 5 to 10 minutes of deep, slow breathing each day can lower systolic blood pressure by as much as 10 points. Not with pills, but with presence. Here's a simple way to start. Box breathing. Breathe in for 4 counts. Hold for 4. Breathe out for 4. Hold for 4. Repeat for a few minutes. Do it in the morning, or before sleep, or whenever you feel your body tensing. It's like sending a message straight to your heart. You're okay. You're safe. And your heart listens. Your vessels soften. Your brain gets the calm steady flow it needs. Now imagine doing this every day for a week, a month, a year. You're not just lowering your pressure, you're rewriting your body's response to stress, and in doing so, you're building stroke resistance from the inside out. This, right here, is where real prevention begins. Not just with numbers, but with nervous system tone, with daily practices that restore balance, that quiet the silent forces driving your pressure up. In the next part, we'll look at the deeper pattern behind all this, why the modern lifestyle is wired to keep us inflamed, stressed, and hypertensive, and what we can do to step out of it. Let's be honest, high blood pressure isn't just a medical issue, it's a reflection, a symptom of something bigger, of how we live, how we move or don't, how we eat, think, sleep, and react, how the world around us keeps pulling us out of balance. We weren't designed for this pace, for screens lighting up our eyes late into the night, for deadlines chasing us from the moment we wake, for processed food engineered for cravings, for constant noise, constant comparison, constant tension beneath the surface. And yet, this is the water we're swimming in. Every day, our nervous system never truly rests. Our stress hormones stay elevated. Our blood pressure rises not just from salt or genes, but from a life that feels like a slow, quiet emergency. You might eat well, take your meds, do your best, but if you're stuck in the noise of emails, news, traffic, expectations, then your body never gets the message. It's okay to relax. And without that message, healing doesn't happen. The pressure doesn't drop. The risk stays. This is the hidden connection no one talks about. The invisible current underneath your numbers. And this is why lifestyle isn't just advice. It's medicine, not the kind you swallow, but the kind you live. A quiet walk in the early morning light, breathing in the trees, eating a real meal, at a real table, talking to someone without checking your phone, pausing before bed, letting your system know it can let go. These are small things, but they shift your biology. They turn off the alarm bells ringing in your blood vessels. They allow your body to return to its natural rhythm. And that rhythm is your protection. If modern life is the perfect storm, then your choices, quiet, daily, deliberate, are the shelter, the anchor, the calm center in the chaos. In the final part, we'll bring everything together. One last look at how to live stroke-free, not by fear and disease, but by returning to balance, to rhythm, to what your body has been asking for all along. Maybe you're watching this because you're worried. Maybe your doctor told you your numbers don't look good. Maybe someone close to you had a stroke, and now everything feels more fragile, more uncertain, more real. If that's you, I want you to know this. It's not too late. Not too late to turn toward healing. Not too late to shift the course. Not too late to write a different ending. Because the truth is, the most powerful changes aren't loud. They're not dramatic. They don't need a perfect gym or a perfect diet plan. They begin with awareness, with noticing the way you breathe, the way you carry your body, the tension in your jaw, the speed of your thoughts, the heaviness in your chest you've been ignoring. And then, with a quiet decision, you do something small. You walk instead of sit. You sleep instead of scroll. You choose water instead of soda. You listen to your body when it's tired, and slowly, steadily, the pressure begins to ease. Inside and out. This is not about fear or guilt or fixing everything overnight. It's about reclaiming the rhythm you were born with. A rhythm that protects you, that nourishes your heart, that restores your brain, that lowers your blood pressure. Not just with pills, but with peace. And yes, there will be setbacks. You'll fall back into old habits. Stress will rise again. That's okay. What matters most is that you return, again and again, to that quiet center inside you, where healing begins. A stroke doesn't come out of nowhere. It's not just bad luck. It's often a message whispered by your arteries, your brain, your nervous system, long before the storm hits. So listen now, while there's still time, before the silence becomes permanent. And if you've already been through a stroke, know this: you are still here. Your story isn't over. You can still protect what's left, still nurture your future, still live with intention, with softness, with strength, because living stroke-free isn't about perfection, it's about presence. So breathe, slow down, let your heart settle, let your pressure fall. Let healing take root in the quietest parts of your life. You don't need to fight your body. You just need to finally listen to it. And when you do, that's the quiet victory, the one that matters most.